Hello and welcome to Tetra Tech Sustainable Markets podcast. Thank you for joining us today. My name is François-Xavier Torrance. I'm a product compliance specialist here at Tetra Tech, and I'm part of the IMDS training coordination team as well. These podcasts were designed to help you achieve and maintain regulatory compliance. Again, we appreciate you joining us today to learn new expert tips and review best practices. There's nothing more frustrating than spending time creating a material data sheet only to see it immediately be rejected for failing to use the proper nomenclature and customer part number. Does that sound familiar? Alright, so what can you do to ensure your MDSs are accepted the first time around? Let's have a brief look at the general picture first, and then I'll give you a few concrete best practice tips to make these types of rejections a thing of the past. Let's just take a couple of seconds to see where you can actually find recommendation 001 in the IMDS interface itself. Notice the top left banner. We're here in the main screen. Left click on Help, left click on Recommendation. And here's the list of rules and guidelines provided to you by the IMDS Steering Committee. I really highly encourage you to become familiar with this section because all of those documents really provide you with the backbone and the rules that are going to help you achieve higher efficiency, better quality in everything you do in IMDS. Right now, we're specifically looking for IMDS recommendation 001, which happens to be on the very top. Left click on the document itself, which will automatically download to your download folder on your computer or wherever you have decided or chosen to download your documents. So without further ado, let's look at this week's rejection reason number 1, which is when the provided material data sheet, also known as the MDS, lists an incorrect description or part item number. This is the easiest error to avoid and yet one of the most common reasons for IMDS rejection. It seems like an obvious step, but often entries are rejected and production part approval processes, PPAPs, as you also know them, are delayed because suppliers fail to enter this data properly. In most cases, your company part number will be different than your customers. You need to ensure you capture your customer's part number under the Recipient Data tab Details section once you have added the customer as a recipient. We'll see an example in a second here. In some rare instances, the customer may also request that the product description be different than your company's description or name. This carries over automatically to the Recipient Data tab by default when you create a part. Therefore, it is essential you pay close attention to this before submitting your entry. So how can you fix this? If you do not have the correct customer part number, or if the customer is requesting a name change to match their nomenclature and your datasheet was rejected, here are a few simple steps you can follow to fix this problem. The first thing you need to do now is search for the MDS that was rejected by your customer. To do so, you have a couple of options. You can click the Outbox button located right here, click MDS, and search from this screen. However, today we are going to search by clicking right here and go to the MDS/module search screen, which appears by default when you open IMDS. Now, the part that we are looking for is called Test Part. That's the name that you gave the part when you created it. You could also search with the part number added. You do not have to, but you know it, so you can add it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you could look with either one of those options. Also notice how own MDSs and own modules are ticked. That's perfect because we're looking for a part that you created internally. Push the search button. Here's the part. The next thing you need to do is right-click on the entry and select Edit, like so. Click on it, left-click, right-click, and left-click again on Edit. Alright, now that you have selected the material data sheet that was rejected by your customer, you have selected Edit, you are in the main screen under the Ingredients tab of that part. The name of the part is Test Part. That's the name you've chosen to assign to it when you created the part. The part item number 123-4567 is your internal reference. Now, it's possible sometimes that some of your customers might choose to use the same name and the same part number. But in that case, you have been told by your customer that you need to change the test part name to bracket, and they also want the number to not be 123-4567, but they want to use their internal reference, which will be here 90-100. So let's click on the Recipient Data tab that we mentioned earlier, and here you can see that when you selected Intellectual Designs and you submitted to them, they rejected it on the 31st of August. Now, the part name and the part number are exactly the same as they are here under the Ingredients tab, because as I mentioned before,
when you create this, and as soon as you assign a customer that you're going to be proposing this data sheet to, IMDS automatically carries over the name and automatically carries over the part item number. And this is where you have to be very careful if you have specific requirements. Now we know what those are to be, and so we're going to make the correction. Now we're going to highlight this. We can backspace and delete it, or just overwrite it. We're going to type bracket. And notice what happens here. As soon as I type bracket and I click out of it, rejected turns into modified, which is great. This is what we want, but we still have to change the numbering. We're going to type 90-100. I'm going to click out of it again. All right, it's recorded. The one thing I want to bring your attention to, and it's very important, is that a lot of times people will submit the proper part item number per their customer's requirements, but unfortunately they will type it under the name field, and vice versa. They'll put the name under the part item field. So that's another easy mistake to avoid. Just make sure that you follow the labels and that you're very careful. In that case, we can actually repropose the MDS, and we can be confident that if there are no other issues, our customer will actually accept the part. Now, you can do two things. You can either push the propose button, or you can click on the check. It's a good best practice to apply. Click on the check button right here, and it'll tell you that there are 0 errors and 0 warnings. You are now safe to push the propose button, and your customer can choose to accept it, hopefully. Now, the reason I said hopefully is because this will only work if you need to edit data in the recipient data tab. If the rejection, however, also includes an issue regarding the ingredients, and if the datasheet had already been internally released, you will need to select the datasheet from the search screen, right-click on it again, but this time select Copy, New Version to make the edits and repropose the entry again. You will not be able to do it by just selecting Edit. But we will address this in one of our future podcasts.
This concludes our Sustainable Markets podcast for today. We sincerely hope that you'll be able to use this information and incorporate it into your everyday processes. On behalf of the entire team here at Tetra Tech, I want to thank you again for joining us today and hope that you'll be able to join us again next time for new tips and expert advice on how to reach and maintain regulatory compliance. If in between we can be of any assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by contacting one of our experts by following the prompts on the screen right here. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you next time.